explain something to Matt and I. Why does Tulsi keep on going to Africa? Because that is something that I'm always like. I mean, I get it now. I'm really what's going on with that? That's always such a weird wrinkle.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said about her military career that is a little interesting. I mean, she joined as a combat medic. She goes to Iraq. But according to her book, she never really did anything in Iraq. She was just on a base. She wasn't dealing with patients. She had like kind of an administrative role dealing with paperwork. She never, apparently, or she doesn't talk about it if she did, but according to her book and the comments she's made, she never even left the main base. She never went through the gates, never went on a patrol, things like that. And so she really wanted to lead heavily into her Iraq War veteran branding, but, as evidenced in her book, she doesn't really have stories from the Iraq War. She gets back from that and she reclasses as a military police officer in getting commissioned as an officer. Notable that in military police, that is for many years, and at that time, that was where women were having the most direct combat roles. I mean, and there's this whole kind of hidden history that most don't know about, but women who were in military police units were like frontline combatants in the Iraq War for a very long time. So she reclasses to that at like the height of the Iraq War. But she doesn't get sent to Iraq. She gets sent to Kuwait, where she does like security for royals in Kuwait and stuff like that. And then she she's a military police person for a while. She doesn't deploy ever again to a combat zone, even though she says she's been deployed to 3 combat zones. So she lists Kuwait as a combat deployment, which is funny. So again, trying to lean into this brand of being a combat veteran for doing like a security detail in a safe country. But then she reclasses again. She goes into the reserves from the National Guard, but in a psychological operations and civil affairs unit, which does a lot of work with special operations. And so her deployments to Africa have been in her capacity as a commander in and civil affairs is like government, like colonial type government. Like civil affairs goes into a country and like runs the government, sometimes partnered with the so-called local government, but it's like a colonial type military role, but also commanding a psychological operations unit, which does straight up propaganda, like manipulating and brainwashing a sector of the population. Like, they literally have trucks with big loudspeakers on them that go around and broadcast like propaganda shit. Like that's the kind of stuff that PsyOps does. And also waging like psychological terror on people also. So she reclasses to this job in the reserves, which very clearly you do that, you're going to get deployed somewhere. And so it seems that she's always tried to chase deployments in her career and the jobs and the positions that she's taken. She's someone who very much wants to go and do that stuff. So, she's very proudly posted that, I was just fighting terrorists in Africa. I think just the quick, if you look at it, what she's doing there, if you look at a diagram of where U.S. bases are in Africa, you see it's a strip from east to west across the continent, just north of the center. It's a region called the Sahel. The Horn of Africa, where Tulsi has been deployed, is on the eastern coast of that strip. Of course, there's a lot of complex politics in this region, but U.S. military policy can really be boiled down to something quite simple. Africa is a continent of colonial borders carved up by European powers. In the Sahel region, what you really have is a lot of Western-backed autocratic repressive governments where the central goal is just to extract the most amount of resources and raw materials, rare earth minerals as possible, export them to the United States and Europe, while the ruling elites in those African countries take as much of a cut as they can, while letting none of it trickle down to deeply impoverished populations. It includes some countries that are not under this boot, who are sanctioned and sabotaged by the United States. But of course, anytime you have a societal dynamic like this of severe underdevelopment, colonial borders, a legacy of brutality, there's going to be unrest and conflicts and bid for power by opposing forces. So the U.S. military mission in this region is really 100% about controlling the level of conflict so that the flow of capital from African mines can run unimpeded to American and European capitalists. So Tulsi is very much bragging about the fact that she's there fighting radical Islamic terrorists, as she likes to call it. But it doesn't matter who the enemy is to the Pentagon at any given moment. It's a capitalist war for capitalist interests. Of course, Tulsi does have like a very firm ideological dedication to that mission. like she wants to kill Muslims, I believe. But in terms of her actual role there, supporting special operations, doing shady black ops stuff, it's all about maintaining stability for the profits of big capitalists in Europe and the United States, and also really kind of the front lines of how the climate crisis is being militarized. Because as the climate warms, the Sahara, like the desert region, is expanding. It's causing conflicts between pastoralist farmers and agricultural farmers, and these are all things that the U.S. wants to use the military to control so it doesn't impede on profits.
I mean, yeah. So she's not just going out on vacation or anything like that. I mean,
She's probably killing people in some way. I mean, she's probably like getting informants and intelligence and part of operations that allow special forces to go in and like shoot people in their beds or hit them with drone strikes and things like that.